Well, I'll start with the statement of this. We're facing this week not only ourselves, but a team that's lost three in a row in Ole Miss, a team that has NCAA implications, and that's kind of been the state of which we face some of our toughest opponents in recent SEC play. The depths of this conference is unbelievable. I've said it all last year. I'll say it again. There's 9 teams probably that's separating themselves at the present moment. But this conference, sort of swallows your weaknesses. And right now, our biggest weakness that we've been battling is the injuries that have taken place and having a consistent lineup. It impacts our everyday. It impacts our inability to grow, our inability to be consistent, have consistent lineups, or even rotations. There's no such thing as pain-free athletics, and we have guys that are playing banged up, but they fight through that. But we also have injuries, and every team goes through the banged up part. Every team goes through injuries, and I just don't know who has gone through the type or the number of injuries that we have this season. But again, there's no excuses for where we are. I'm still a coach that's demanding excellence from our guys on and off the court, excellence between the lines in games, and different things like that. So I just want to thank our fans for continuing to support our young people through this time, and also help protect the future of our program, because recruits do see the support. They mentioned the support. And what's unbelievable is the amount of sacrifice that's taking place among our Mizzou fan, our crowd, especially when we're at home, but also the support that our future of our program sees. And it plays a part in kids wanting to be here.
Any questions?
Dennis, you mentioned those injuries. You as a coach, what do you feel like you've learned, this season, having to navigate all those types of injuries?
Well, every year you navigate injuries, or like I said, being banged up and things that can kind of derail you. Sometimes it's not even injuries. Sometimes it's young people's decisions, and the decisions not to think things through. So you have the academic part of ineligibility that can take place. You have kids not following rules and regulations, and this just happens to be ours. And I meet it face to face. I don't run from it. I don't run or lead any different than I would last year. I don't get high. I don't get low. I'm a very consistent leader. So I just make sure our guys are provided the affirmation that they're good enough, that that there's a brighter side to all of this. There's a lesson that's being learned, and you may not be able to pinpoint it, but trust me, it's great to win games. There's no doubt about it, but it's even better when you can win the game of life. And right now we're in a teaching moment where I can teach these young people through stress. I can teach them through adversity, and I can teach them how, one day possibly when they meet that day that they're able to overcome it. So I just think ultimately there's a bigger lesson, and we'll all point back at this moment at some point in time.
Coach, to that end, you mentioned after the last game the ability that you're having to kind of cut your teeth in this stretch and how important that is for coaches. What or who do you turn to as you're kind of navigating this? You've been a successful coach, so maybe for the first time having a stretch like this to be able to maintain that consistency.
Yeah, so I talk to my mentors. I pray about it. I consistently smile. I think ultimately we all have to be participants in our own rescue. I get to choose to walk in this building every day with the ability to impact people with an infectious energy, or take away that energy. And I'm not ever going to be an energy taker. I've been taught that the trials and tribulations of life helps sort of mold you, and I've been through a lot in my life that allows me to look at this as a moment, not a defining moment, but just a moment and something to grow and build upon. And the season's not over. There's still a tournament to be won. There's no doubt about it. So there's a tournament to be won, and there's a tournament to prepare for. So we're preparing for that in this time. And ultimately, our season's not over until it's over. And, you know, there's going to be naysayers. There's going to be people that believe. There's people that's going to prophesy failure. So some people have prophesied failure after last season success, and that's okay. And there's obviously going to be people that's out there supporting us that's going to prophesize sort of success. And, you know, I want these young people to know you have to still manage everything through adversity and take it for what it's worth. And I'm just going to continue to push these dudes how we need to push them. Our coaching staff is going to be the same way, but I just know how to show up every day, and that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, Coach, with some of the players being banged up, how much has it helped to have this week between games to kind of rejuvenate a little bit?
Well, just think about it. Jesus had a great first half last game, but he couldn't play the second half. He's a little banged up, right, in certain situations, and those are things that we have to try to get through. But for guys, I'm not going to put guys in bad spots. Think about it. Last year, I made the decision to not play Kobe Brown because of the big picture. And I have to continue to make decisions that may allow us to, or young people, to continue to have success and not put them in bad positions or even further hurt themselves. Young people just want to be out there. I'll give an example. Sean East probably wanted to come back in the game regardless of what's going on. But I had to hold him out of practices and obviously hold him out of this last game. And the big question is, how is he doing? Yeah, I'll answer that. He's progressing. And I'm not going to overdo it because consistency is important. There's no use to having him play a game or play a practice when he can't practice the next day, if that was to take place. So if he's going to play, I want him to play for the remainder of the season, and I'm going to err on the side of caution. So each day we've continued to increase, but also make sure that we're not putting him in a bad spot. And trust me, I've started slow with the increase part. So we won't know until we got about 3 more situations. Obviously today's practice, tomorrow's practice, and then shoot around on game day to kind of manage that and see how his body responds. If his body doesn't respond well and they're swelling after the increased workload, then we know what time it is and what we need to do and not do. So those are the things that I think about.
When you look at Ole Miss, you know, what stands out to you about them?
Well, first of all, they're led by a Final Four coach and Chris Beard. They have a returning player, Matthew Morrell, who was a part of that program last year, not on the winning side of it. So it's a new side for him, and he's doing a tremendous job leading, as well as Brakefield. Those 2 guys are in their rotation, and they were a part of the program for the last couple of years that didn't have the success that they may have wanted. So they have been a crucial part of the success, especially when it comes down to the transfer from Auburn, Flanagan, as well as Murray. Those guys do a tremendous job. They have great centers, great rim protection. Those things stand out, but what stands out more than anything is what's on the line. What's on the line for this team is an ability to, quote unquote, not have a net loss that can impact their implications, or have a win at home. And they've lost their last 3, obviously to ranked opponents, but they're gonna be fighting, and they're gonna be desperate.
Coach, on the rest of the injury front with Caleb and Trent, any sense of what their availability will be going?
Yeah, Caleb's is pretty much, you know, he has certain setbacks when it comes down to whether it's swelling or even pain in it. So we just have to proceed with caution and not put him in a bad situation. He's going to continue to try his best, but he hadn't completed a full practice yet. And that's where you have to gauge it. If he can't complete a full practice, he's not going to get cleared by the doctors. And you know, you can't predict the forecast of injuries and guys being hurt. Same with Trent Pierce. You know, he has, you know, his ailment, and he's trying to get through it. And you know, you can't make it up. You know, at some point, can I mention next week Trent's situation? Possibly. Like, for instance, it's tough for him to get on airplanes because of his ear. And, you know, those things right now has to be doctor cleared. It has to take place, and you can't put a kid like that in a bad situation. You have to make sure he's okay. But again, that impacts the trauma that you can have associated to sports, right? You got to protect the kids. So he's doing non-contact things right now, and we're trying to figure out if he needs to have a procedure or not done. Who else is injured? Name them.
Zeus.
Jesus is going to be available, but ultimately we got to monitor his situation. We all know Caleb Brown. Caleb Brown is progressing more and more. He's not on crutches. He's not on a scooter. He's basically in non-contact things, but limited cutting, limited things like that. John Tonje, the same way. These guys are healing, but they're just not at the point of competing like that. Last but not least, Coach Dickie Nutt, who's also on the injured list for us. He's fighting his battle. He's had his first dose of chemo, and it's tough. It's tough. It is tough on his body, but he's connected to the program every day. He's connected to myself. He's connected to the staff. I got a call from Houston Nutt yesterday, and that's where Coach Nutt is right now, just staying with his brother. And Houston checks in with me, and I check in with Houston, and also Coach Nutt's daughter, Alexis. And they keep me informed every step of the way. His spirits are high. He misses us. He misses the players. This is his first time in 35 years not being on the sideline. But what awareness it raises for those that needs to get checked, the smallest thing get checked. And that's where Coach Nutt is with his. He'll be back in town at the end of the month for his second dose of chemo. And ultimately, we're there with him fighting.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks. MIZ.
You.